At 74, most people are slowing down. My guest, on the other hand, at 74, is teaching digital skills to entrepreneurs half her age. You can decide you are not technical, not young enough, or not wired for this digital world, and then quietly let your business shrink because of it. Today, we are talking about intellectual health and future skills, learning the basic structure and building on it, and why staying cognitively flexible is not optional if you want relevance at any age. I'm joined today by Jenni Kravitz, entrepreneur since 1979, founder of multiple businesses, who is now a digital educator helping solo entrepreneurs master a creative program without overwhelm. I'm Ildiko Seely, your routine and performance strategist, and this is Routine is Revenue, where we connect your personal health routines directly to your business and career performance. So Jenni, you started your first business in 1979, almost the year I was born, with no knowledge of word processing whatsoever and 4 weeks to figure it all out. Here you are now at age 74 and you are teaching Canva to entrepreneurs half your age. So please tell me honestly, who is really behind in tech? The older generation or the people who stopped being curious?
I think it's a bit of both, because the older generation has kind of given up on it, and then they'll turn around and say, well, I don't need to know this, until they start to run a business. And then they suddenly realize that they do need to catch up. But the younger generation is so used to it. I mean, even my 4-year-old granddaughter now, when I go and see her, she's going, Alexa, start playing this and do that. And you think, she's 4. Like, what is going on here? And, so the younger generation is growing up with it, but they don't necessarily realize what the older generation can see from our vantage point of experience as to how to use it. We can see what a huge benefit it is and what we didn't have before. Whereas the younger generation just they just take it as being a matter of routine.
Take it for granted, and the older generation kind of appreciates the technical advance.
I've been in the business now for over 50 years. And so when I see something come up, I immediately start thinking, how do I apply this? What have I been doing that I can replace with this new tech? For example, I would always in the past 2 years ago say, I can make my designs in PowerPoint. They don't look very good, but I know PowerPoint like the back of my hand. And then earlier last year, I started using Canva, and I thought, oh my God, why have I been ignoring this product for so long? Because it's actually brilliant.
So that's really interesting. So you were behind in that sense.
Yes, in a sense.
And then suddenly discovered something and gone with it.
Yeah, and I thought, why have I stopped? Why have I not embraced this? It's fantastic. And it was actually my inability to find good training on it that created the course. Because I sat down around about August, having really struggled with it, because I knew what I wanted to do, but it wasn't laid out the way that I was used to, and it didn't think the way that I was thinking, because I was a Microsoft product, that's what I knew. And it doesn't think like that. And I kept losing things. So I'd create something and then I'd overwrite it, or it had gone, and I just didn't know what was going on. So I sat down and I thought, I am going to learn this. I'm going to document it as I go along. And when I've finished, I will offer it to the world, because everybody needs to learn it from the ground up. You can't just come in at an angle and learn all the little bits. You need to know the whole thing.
But it is quite interesting. So those of us who have got that sort of Microsoft or PowerPoint background, or any kind of a design use, because it could be Adobe, it does help, doesn't it? Even though Canva is just something completely different. But I personally found that you kind of figure it out, because at the end of the day, certain things are close enough that you would understand. If you go in here, then you might be able to find solutions there. Although I must admit that I do come across Canva training reels on Instagram, and they are just so incredibly fast. But some of them are like, wow, you can do that in Canva.
And then you have to slow down and try and figure out what they just said.
Yeah.
or find it again. I found with me that it was rather like learning a language. When I learned to speak French, and I am quite good at languages, but they were my best subjects, so French and Italian, I was made to learn from the grammar upwards. And this is very like that. If you don't know where to go to get back to square one, most people I know don't know what the home button is in Canva. But the home button is where you always go when you want to start something new.
I was
If
going
you
to say, is
don't
there a
go
home
there,
button?
yes, there is. It looks
I just go
like
to
a little
projects.
house. Well, that's one way of doing it. But if you want to create something new, the ideal way is to always go back. This looks like a little house.
Yeah,
It's on the
yeah,
top
yeah.
left
I
of
know
the
actually.
screen. If you always go there, then you're not in any danger of overwriting something by mistake, which is the biggest problem, or losing things. You need to name everything. It doesn't matter even if it's a page, name it. If
Yeah,
you
yeah,
don't give it a
absolutely
name,
right.
you've got no chance of finding it again, because you just get all this media that you're creating and it's got no names and no method of you getting back to it. You need to learn, like with a language, you need to learn the basic structure of how it thinks and then build the other stuff on top. That's the
That's
way that I've approached it.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. That just leads me on to my next question. Then, apart from the fact that you've actually built businesses over a number of decades, as we established, and different industries and technologies over your lifetime, but what do you think actually matters for longevity in business in particular? Is it intelligence, confidence?
Well, all of those, and also courage.
Okay.
You've really got to grit your teeth and say, I can do this. I need it because it's filling a gap in the market, or I need it because I need to earn money, and this is a skill that I think I could develop. But you've got to be courageous. You've got to just jump in and keep going, no matter what happens to put you off on the way. You've just got to keep going. And it is courage that's required.
But also, yeah, if we sort of bring it all together into almost like a circle, that intelligence is
Mm.
needed in order
Yeah,
to actually accept that, yeah, well, I'm learning, I don't know that, so, well, what if I look stupid? It doesn't matter. I won't be that because I will be learning something new. And then, of
yeah,
course, you need to have the confidence to trust in yourself that you are capable of taking on new knowledge.
yeah. You've got to be prepared to look for people who can help you and not be embarrassed about asking them. There
Mm.
are a lot of people who will actually start you off without charging you megabucks, and they'll give you some free advice, which you can start on your journey and learn things from. And then you start to get confidence in that person, and you think, well, actually, it will really shortcut my journey if I go back to that person and pay them something. You really don't always get things for nothing. And if you're setting up a business, you need to learn some skills. You don't just need startup capital, you need to learn some skills. The ability to say, I don't know this, and let me go and find someone who does and who can help me, is one of the most important things that you can learn, I think.
But how do you find your customers? Do they go to family members, like younger family members first, to try and help them out? Or if they
Yeah,
are
they
especially
always
business
do.
people, do they go to professionals? Because if they are in business, they know that.
Certainly in the field of something like Canva, I've found it incredibly difficult to actually locate anybody that's got the knowledge and then wants to teach it.
Okay.
You can, so a lot of people don't have any choice but to go to their younger family members, because they'll sort of say, oh, well, I don't need to learn this because if my son-in-law or my daughter or whatever it is can set up my website or do my Instagrams for me, then I just have to give them the material and they'll do it for me. But then you're waiting for somebody all the time. And all of these skills, if you open your mind, they're not difficult. They're really simple to learn. So the missing link is the person who wants to teach it properly at a pace that you can keep up with them.
So basically, you are teaching Canva step by step because you know very well from your own experience that overwhelm can completely shut people down.
Absolutely. And older people, well, most people get really embarrassed if they look stupid, and they all think to themselves, and I've noticed this through my 50 or so years of teaching people, that there's a look that comes onto their face that sort of, why am I the most stupid person in the world? I'm sure everybody else can do this, but not me. And it's trying to relax them and make them understand that actually you weren't born knowing this. This is not natural. And just slow down and calm down, and I will show you how to do it slowly. And that's a skill when it comes to teaching. Because you have to notice also when the glazed look comes over.
Yeah.
They'll keep up with you to a certain point, and then they're sort of like, yeah, and they're not getting it.
How do you bring people back into the room at that point?
Well, you have to find something that means something to them. I mean, when I
Mm.
was teaching Excel, which is a very dry I
Yeah.
find it very exciting, but
I
people
love a
find it.
spreadsheet, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, but there are a lot of people who sort of like, oh my God, what is she talking about? Put their own bank statement on, just put something simple so they can see money in, money out, and how it adds up. And all of a sudden they get excited. It has to relate to them, and then they'll buy in. And once they've bought in, you've won them over.
That's very interesting. Yeah, if you just the personal detail added in,
Yeah.
suddenly there is an emotional connection, isn't there?
I had a guy who used to be my boss, and then I started my own company. And then at a later stage, I had to go back to him for another project I wanted to start. And the internet had just come out. And he was a top corporate sort of guy, and the sort of man who would always say, "Oh, I've got a secretary to do that for me. I don't need to know that." But he had a slight interest in what was happening with the internet. And he said to me, "I don't need this. I don't, what's it got to do with me?" And I said, "Okay, what are your hobbies?" And he said, "Well, I like hunting and fishing." I said, "Fine, okay. What sort of fishing?" "Salmon fishing." Started typing it in, salmon fishing, and up came all this information instantly. And he was fascinated.
Yeah.
And that was his buy-in, because it was something that was actually relevant to him. And so suddenly, instead of him sort of standing back and saying, "I'll never use this," I had somebody really keen to get to know it.
Yeah, funny enough, it's kind of like, do people sabotage their own progress by not taking
Yeah.
on or not sort of going with the flow when tech changes and becomes an integral part of our life and business? If you were listening to this thinking this is exactly where I get stuck, that is not accidental. You have the business strategies, but leaking energy and focus through weak personal health routines. This is the work I do privately with business owners who are ready to build their routines so their business can run without it costing them their health. Do you find that entrepreneurs, business owners do these things often?
Yes, because they, first of all, they're so overwhelmed by all the things they need to know. I mean, all of a sudden, you've got to know about tech. You've got to know, and that's sort of putting your point over. How are you going to get the content and the wording? And then while all that's going on, how do you harness social media? How do you get somebody to help you put a website out? What do you put on the website? And then there's this irritating little extra thing that comes alongside it, like you've still got to do your accounts. So, I mean, I was talking to one of my girlfriends yesterday, and she said, "Oh, I've got to spend tomorrow doing admin." And I said, "Well, why would you, what do you mean? I presume you mean you're getting your accounts up to date." She said, "Yes, it's such a drag, and I've got to do the VAT and this and that." And, I said to her, "Why don't you get it computerized? Get a program, get someone to set it up for you who knows what they're doing, and then it'll run itself. And then at the end of the year, it's all automatic." That's what I do.
Theoretically, my accountant automated my invoice uploads, but I don't know, I still need to catch up with the system to understand how it's automated, because I still seem to upload everything myself. But I might be duplicating it. But then again, that's down to me actually learning how the system works.
Even in that environment, you need somebody who's got the patience to teach you properly. Somebody has to set it up for you, because we don't get born knowing accountancy terms and how to analyze things and where to put this and where to put that. But there are programs that will do it all for you if the person who's starting you off knows what they're doing. So that's where you should be spending your money. You should be spending your money on getting someone to set you up so you're free from doing that sort of work, because you don't need to do that work. You need to be creative. You need to be out there telling people about your business and doing the exciting stuff, not not sort of bogging you down a whole days at a time doing admin, which literally translated means I'm typing my invoices into my whatever program you're using so that my accountant can send it on its way.
You are absolutely right, Jenny. And I love your energy that you are not just keeping up with tech, but you are actually literally leading digital education to your audience. What does Jenny do to keep up your brain and sharp and up to date with all these changes?
I am just fascinated by tech and development, and I'm so happy that I live in this day and age. I mean, what a privilege to be born at this time where I've been able to see personal computers and now AI come into existence. There's all these things that make life easier, and I'm fascinated by it. I just love to watch it. I love to get my sleeves rolled up and actually get in there and start using it. And the only thing that stops me is not having enough time to do everything I want to do. There are not enough hours in the day to learn all the things I want to learn. I'd really like to get to grips with more of the automation that you can harness with AI at the moment. I actually don't have time right now to do it, but I will make space for it because I used to love macros in Excel and Word, getting things to do things automatically for me. If I could get a computer to make the bed, I would. I'm that lazy. What influences me, what keeps me sharp? I just love to learn. It's just fascinates me.
That is just so refreshing to hear from someone your age. That's brilliant. And you're just completely breaking down all of those age barriers for people. And I really, really hope that the older entrepreneurs listening are just taking this on themselves, actually, the way to put it.
We can all do it. We just have to be open-minded to say that, why can't I join in with this? And who can I go to find some advice or to get some learning? And that's what you need to do, not have the shutters down and wear it like a badge of honor that you can't do it. It wasn't meant for me. I was never intended to do this. That's wrong. Get over yourself. Anyone can do it. My father actually started with me with the first business I set up. I was 24, 25. He was 64.
Oh,
And
wow.
he never touched a computer. He spent the next 20 years learning computer programs. And if he could do it at 64, just shows that age doesn't matter.
What an example he set to you. Then obviously,
Yeah.
no wonder that you are continuing like that. So
Yes.
I was going to ask the next question very specifically. What kind of advice? You've half answered it perhaps, but you might come up with something specific. So any entrepreneurs, business owners, especially in later life, listening or watching this episode with you, and if they are feeling like, I'm just really not good at tech, what would be the first bit of mindset shift or a practical step, either or, that you would recommend for them to take?
Nobody gets born knowing tech, but there are a lot of people out there who will do one of two things for you these days. They will either take it over for you and run it for you so that you can get on with running your business, and they'll charge you a relatively low monthly amount to do the tech for you, or you can find people out there who are only too willing to teach you. You'll have to pay them, because the big news story is nothing comes for nothing, and
That's
it's
true.
not going to come from the universe either. You will have to pay for some things, but the things you need to pay for are gearing yourself up with knowledge. But if I've got a friend who's just taken on an agency, very good service. They run everything for her, including setting up her Facebook page, helping her get her website set up. They'll make sure the CRM, that's the contact relation management, is done, and they will do that as a service, so she can just get on with what she wants to do, and she doesn't actually have to get involved with the tech. So that you've got both choices. You either do it all yourself, but you'll need to be taught, or you can pay someone else to do it at a relatively low maintenance fee.
Brilliant advice. So now just moving on to something slightly different, because never mind teaching Canva in your 70s to other people and people half your age, but you also started a ballroom dance school at 56
Yeah.
with Guaranteed Partners, which is still running today. But what we take away from that if someone listening who are in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they might feel that it's just a bit too late to start something new, do you think they are wrong? Or are they just afraid of
Absolutely.
being a
No,
beginner again?
they're absolutely wrong. There is no such thing as any age barrier. I mean, I also get people saying to me, "Oh, I'm much too old to learn to dance." And you sort of think, "Well, how old are you?" And they're almost always younger than me. And I, it was the same when I used to teach people in classroom environments, teaching them IT. How old are you? I can't do it. I'm too old. Okay, how old are you? 60, 54 or whatever. My father was 64. You can do it as well. You just need a good teacher.
Yeah, I feel like it's my physical abilities. But then again, I'm pretty sure that there would be things that I could still, I'd love to. And why is it that men are a lot less kind of
Able.
enthusiastic to, and I think
Well,
enthusiastic to learn to dance?
it's because they expect to be able to learn it quite quickly, and they don't like to look stupid in front of their women.
That's true.
And what happens? It's a much harder job for a man to become a leader than it is for a woman. We just have to learn how to follow and how to do the pretty bits. Whereas they've got to decide the direction of the dance. What are we going to do next? They really have to have a lot more control than we do. And they're used to being in the gym or on the golf course or doing something where they can show strength, and people will admire them for how good they are. And yet all of a sudden you're putting them in an environment where probably their partner or the other women in the room know more about dancing than they do from the get-go, and they just don't want to look stupid. So you have to nurture them. You've really got to, if a man wants to learn to dance, you encourage them in, you smooth their feathers, you give them time, you give them patience, and you'll end up eventually with somebody who's a good partner. But never make them feel stupid, because otherwise they just go.
But it's exactly the same advice as you said earlier about tech. If an older person goes to their younger generation in the family for some support, they might do it once or twice. But if the youngsters make them feel stupid, they don't ask again, do they?
I mean, most men, they find themselves in the minority in a dance class. They've got all these women around them, which probably their own partner and a few other women as well, expecting them to dance with them, and they don't know what they're doing. Would you want to do that? You know, who's
you're
going to buy
right.
in?
You're right.
So, you know, I've kind of got behind the psychological thing there, and that's why we always provide qualified partners who already know how to dance. And if we've got a man coming in learning, we give them a female partner who knows how to dance. Takes away all the anxiety. They can relax, they can enjoy it, they can learn it, and that's how it works.
That sounds fabulous. And it's a very good ethos. And as I say, it's really quite interesting how teaching dancing and teaching tech, kind of the same.
It's all learning.
Same thing. Yeah, and indeed, you're absolutely right. It's all about learning. It's all about bettering our intellectual health in order to be a better person.
Yeah.
Jenni, thank you so much for your advice. Thank you so much for your energy. I love it. Absolutely love it. And thank you for all the knowledge that you brought to this episode.
Well, I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
If this episode has shown you where weak health routines are costing you revenue, your next step is simple. Ask yourself this question. Is your business draining your energy faster than it grows? If the answer might be yes, I invite you to book a conversation via the link in the show notes. If this conversation made you think, please subscribe, leave a comment, and listen again. If you would like more information on the topic or my guest, all information is in the show notes. Remember, your business will only ever be as healthy as you. Together, let's build routines to bank results.